Way better than the actual art.
For real.
Alrighty. As people are coming in, let's get started. Good evening, everybody. And it's a little bit after 5 o'clock Pacific time, which could mean only one thing. It's time for another episode of The Yard.
Waiting on his move.
Here we are. The Yard is a production of Commissary Club. Commissary Club is the first social network for people with criminal records. My name is Richard Bronson, and I am the founder and CEO of Commissary Club, as well as 70 Million Jobs, which is an employment platform for folks with records. I am, as usual, I am joined by my two dear friends and teammates. Number one, the big man himself, ex-NBA LA Laker, Seth Sundberg. Sundberg, hey Seth.
What's up, Richard? I love it. It's flashbacks.
I know. I'm going to be working the Laker games this year if they ever have them. Yeah. Joining Seth and I is another dear friend and a man of almost mythic proportions, truth be told. He is a rap musician of note. He also is considered an entrepreneur to the stars. My good friend Divine. D, how are you tonight?
Peace, Rich. What's going on? Thanks for having me, man.
Always wonderful having you. In the interest of full disclosure, the three of us all have records. I'm sad to say. Someone who doesn't have a record, though, we are assisted by our another teammate of ours, the woman who was sort of behind the scenes running things and arguably the brains of the operation, which should give you an idea about this operation. Her name is Adrian Hatter. Adrian Hatter. Now, before we get started, we have a few housekeeping issues to address, and we'll be bringing our guests. I'll be introducing them to you shortly. If during the course of the next hour and a half or so you have any questions or comments, please use the chat function at the bottom of the screen, and we will try to address them as they come in. About halfway through, sometimes there are people who have some thoughts that they want to share or questions they want to ask and want to join the conversation. We ask in general that these are folks who have a record, because that's what this is all about. But if you do want to join the conversation, please address a comment to Adrian and she will try to accommodate you with that. After that, there's really no rules that we have here. So what is this all about? Some of you I know have been with us before, some perhaps not. On the Yard, like on Commissary Club, our goal ultimately is to connect people. And through those connections, one another can be available to help one another, to serve as a role model perhaps, or even to inspire one another. We desperately want, ultimately, for people who are not familiar, who haven't done time, for people to recognize and see that folks with records, are ultimately not all that different than anybody else. And that they are much, much more than the crime that they may have committed, or in many cases, not even have committed. Rather, what they are is a certain undeniable humanity. And that's what we would love to have emerge from this evening. We'd also love you to understand as much as possible what it's like to be incarcerated. What is that experience like, really? We think that if more and more people can appreciate the humanity of people who've done time and what the experience is, only good things can result from that. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask everybody to go through this exercise that we've done every single time. And again, please indulge me on this. first, if everybody, our guests, our co-hosts, and everybody who's watching, including you, Craig, I see you, if you all could please just take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Now, again, I ask everybody to do this. Please just close your eyes. Close your eyes and sort of let your mind wander, you know? Take yourself wherever your mind is going to take you. Don't fight it. I'd love you, if you could, to imagine that perhaps you've made a mistake in your past. Maybe there's one you could remember. And maybe it was a big one. And because you made this big mistake in your past, maybe you were very young when you did it, now you find yourself incarcerated. You're incarcerated, and if you're like most people, they've thrown you into some very old, dilapidated prison. Maybe this prison's in Attica, New York. Maybe it's in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Maybe it's in Chino, California, wherever. And for this mistake, for this big mistake that you've made, they gave you a 10-year sentence, 10-year sentence to be incarcerated. Maybe right now you've served 3-4 years of your sentence, which means you still have a good 5-6 years to go. And you have a lot of time to just sit around in prison. And on this day, it's no different than any other. You're sitting around and you can't help but notice that there are guards walking down the hallway past your cell, and they're carrying these stretchers. And on these stretchers are other inmates, some you know, some you may even be friendly with. And these inmates on the stretchers, you see that they're struggling to breathe, they're coughing, they're wheezing. And you know that the reason why they're doing this is that, like many others in the prison, they've come down with the coronavirus. And, you know, you hold yourself back and you try not to think of it, but you can't help but know that some of these people, who some may be friends of yours, some of these people won't be coming back. And you're sitting or perhaps laying in your cot in your cell. It's a tiny cell. You're sharing it with someone you just really can't stand. Your cot is positioned right next to, I mean, literally within inches of the sink, the stained glass sink. And the sink is part of a unit that's connected to the toilet. So that's what your cot is next to. And every night when you go to sleep, your head is right by the toilet. You've gotten used to, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but you've gotten used to your cellmate using the toilet at all hours because you've had to get used to it. And unfortunately, there's not like a moment of privacy that you or your cellmate can have to use that toilet. So that's your reality. But once a day, there's a reprieve. Once a day, when you're not staring at the dingy concrete walls, when you're not being evil-eyed by some angry, confrontational correctional officer whose only pleasure in life seems to be giving you personally shit on just never ending. Once a day, they let you out of your cell or living unit, and they give you an hour or two where you can go outside onto the yard. Now, every yard, as people who have been to multiple prisons, every yard is a little bit different. And a lot of it has to do with the security level of the prison. On some yards, they have electrical wire that crisscrosses over your head. What's that there for? Well, some prisons have had inmates that have arranged for helicopters to come down onto the yard, grab them so that they could escape. Well, when you have these wires electrified above you, a helicopter can't do it. So some yards have got that. Some have, well, many of them have electrified fences. And above the fences, there is this razor sharp concertina wire that reflects the sun in a very sort of threatening manner. Some prisons, the bad ones, they've got guards positioned in turrets looking down upon the yard and all the inmates there, and they're armed with rifles. And that's the yard that you're walking into. Generally, they're just big, dusty fields, flat fields. And when you walk out there, maybe you're just going to want to take a walk and just sort of just share your thoughts and be left alone and have a few moments of peace. Maybe you're going to toss a football around with your friends, or where they have the rusty old equipment, exercise equipment. They call that the weight pile. Maybe that's where you're going to go. That's popular. But in your case, what you're going to do is what you almost do every time you go out into the yard every day. This is what you've done for the last several years. This is what you're going to do the next several years, every single day of the week. And that's when you're going to go to this spot where you're going to hook up with your friends. You're going to hook up with your boys, or if you're a woman, you're going to hook up with your girls. And maybe it's a picnic table, or maybe it's bleacher seats, or just a slab of cement, or whatever. But that's where they are, and that's where you're going. And when you get there, you do whatever friends do when they're hanging out together. You're going to laugh. You're going to talk to other people. You're going to share happiness relating, to home, perhaps. You're going to share sadness, bad news you got. I mean, the one thing you're not going to do is you're not going to start sobbing, because that kind of weakness doesn't go over well on the yard. But it's real at all times, and it'll be honest, and it'll be human when you're connecting there. And while the sun beating down on you feels great, and while the cool breeze is a hell of a lot better than the stale air you were smelling in your cell, for these few moments with your friends, you can shut your eyes on the yard, like you all are now. And you can make believe that despite all that's gone down in your life, and all of the terrible paths that you ended up, and all of the disappointment you caused your family and your friends, and all of the pain that entailed, that for right now, this one moment perhaps, for these few precious minutes, you can actually believe that yes, you are a human being. You are a human being, just like you used to be before you made that big mistake. So tonight, we welcome you to the yard. Please open your eyes, and please meet some of the people who are out there on the yard with you. Thanks. We got two people I'm very excited to have here that we've been waiting for. Their names are Spencer Oberg and Vic Chopra. Spencer, Vic, hi guys, how are you?
Nice.
Hey, Richard. Doing
Thanks,
well.
bro.
How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for
Thank
having
you
us,
so
guys.
much for both joining us. For the record, Spencer has done about 8 years of prison time,
Yep.
and Vic has done 5.
Yes, sir.
They are very good friends. They met each other after they both were released from prison and decided that they wanted to go into business together. And they created a company called Unincarcerated Productions. Unincarcerated Productions.
Yeah.
And I believe Adrian will get some contact info about them up in the chat area in a moment. Unincarcerated Productions, does a podcast that's very, very popular and very, very good. And I urge people to check it out. And they also make films relating to the criminal justice system, really powerful stuff, and we were talking before we went live here, and they were talking about why they're doing what they're doing. And it's amazing how similar their missions are and what they're after, to what they want to do, to humanize these folks, and to even show that people who have done time, far from being monsters or inferior in many respects, they're heroic and superior. And I'm sure that's informed a great deal by their personal experiences. So Spencer, Vic, it's great to have you. I'm going to ask one question to get started, but the way we work is this is not an interview. Anybody says whatever the hell they want to say, when they want to say it, and how they want to say it. But I got to ask you, you two guys, you're sort of like Hollywood guys, right? You're making media guys. Does Hollywood have it right, based upon your experience, with what the prison experience is all about? Is it anything like what we see on TV and in the movies?
Fuck no.
No, yeah.
No, say it any way you want.
I took that to heart. Thanks, Richard. No, they don't. And that's one of the major reasons why we're doing what we're doing, is because we think that Hollywood and the news media, that really all they're doing is perpetuating the stigma and the stereotypes that keep people oppressed and that keep our system. I mean, I'm glad you said I could say whatever I want. I'm going to try not to cuss too much tonight, but it keeps our system fucked up, right? There's this revolving door. We incarcerate.
Okay, but
people.
wait. I told you I was going to do this, and I'm doing it early.
Interrupt me.
I don't want to hear your pitch about society. I want to hear you tell me the straight story of what prison was if the movies got it wrong. What do movies have it wrong? What is prison like that's not depicted?
Well, I think the biggest, my biggest realization when I went in was that like there's tons of people just like me in here, right? You get this image of what you think of, criminal or somebody that's in prison or an inmate is based on what you're seeing in movies and TV, right? And you just it's very much black and white. It's very much like good guys, and bad guys go to prison. And when you get in there, you realize, I didn't ever really classify myself as a bad guy. I made mistakes. I definitely made poor choices. But going in there, just realizing that there's a lot of quality people here that either just got dealt a shitty hand in life or had substance abuse issues like I did, or, wrong place, wrong time. I mean, the list goes on, but there are good quality people that you meet while you're incarcerated. And that is very rarely shown in movies and in TV shows. Right, Spence?
100%, man. I mean, that was my experience. I had a few encounters with the justice system as a youth, in and out a couple of short little stints of juvenile, etc. And so, but even me, I had this idea in my head that the people that were going to be around me in prison when I went in to do my 10 years, which with good time ended up being about 8. Those weren't people I was going to go looking for friendships with. I didn't go in looking for friends. I went in thinking I'm going to do my time. I'm going to do me. I'm going to make everything that I can out of this. And somehow I'm going to squeeze something positive out of this experience. And I came out of that experience with business partners. I met Vic in work release, which is in Washington State. I guess it's kind of like the halfway house in the feds. Mm-hmm. It's that last little 6 months or so of your sentence when you get to come out and actually start making some, more than 42 cents an hour and start making some money to build a life. I met Vic. I met some of my best friends, my other business partner, David Israel. I met him. He didn't do time at the same time as me, but same past experience. And I met him while I was inside. He'd been released at that point. But the people who are the most important to me in this world now and are the people I trust the most are people I met inside. And that's completely contrary to what we see, or even those of us who had experienced it before, like even what I believed. So I think that was the biggest surprise for me, was how real and raw and like true my relationships were. Like I kept a small circle, but the relationships I cultivated with the guys that I met in there that were my friends, that were my brothers, like I'm still super tight with to this day. And, I lean on them in many different ways. We all sort of live in different parts of the state or the country, but, we'll check in, even if it's after 2-3 months, and then we'll, just pick up right where we left off, like no time has passed, and, we'll check in. But it's always like a good reality check of like, dude, remember this, and look at where we are now.
Are all those guys that you're talking about, are they all released? I mean, all that circle that you were running with inside, is everybody out? Or there's still people down?
Pretty much everybody's out. A couple of them went back, which is sort of the nature of
expected.
Yeah, right. It's what happens. But for the most part, all of them are out. Yeah.
Divine, have you remained friends with anybody that you were in prison with?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about what Vic was saying. It's crazy the people that you meet and you build these bonds. Usually, people you meet in prison, you normally you get out and you commit more crimes together, right? You get out, you commit more crimes. Unfortunately, that's majority of what happens.
You
I
go to
mean,
prison
I've
to
done
learn how
it.
to be a
You know what I
better
mean?
criminal.
I've done it. But I've also made great friendships, lifelong friendships, and people that like genuinely got out. Like one guy got out and went to see my son. And took him for sneakers, took him out, bought him sneakers, and took him out. Like this is someone I met in prison, a criminal in there for firearms. He's going out to the streets, he's connecting with my family, connecting with my son. So it's amazing the lifelong people you find in there and in friendships, and you guys are testaments to that.
So what is it about prison that, I mean, it almost sounds, like a good thing in a
romantic.
way. It's like going away to college.
It is what you make
it's like a giant fraternity. Kind of like really. I mean,
no, it turns into that, right? I mean,
it really did. I mean, I actually was in a fraternity in college, but it's more real than that, though. It's like you're all in a crucible, like you're all being forced to really look internally and shift and change and realize, if they're doing their time wisely, right? We all know there's knuckleheads in there, right?
Oh man,
there are people trying to figure out how to do the robbery better, man.
Yeah, right.
Exactly, right.
Always looking to scam, always looking to hustle.
Building the next crew.
Yeah, right. But when you find those good quality people that are just looking to make the change, if that's the path that you're on, I mean, it really provides fellowship and like a round table discussion every night, if you get to it, of what's fucked up, what's working, what's not working, how can I shift, in this really crazy abstract environment,
Those are the people.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, those are the people that help me remember that I'm human, right? I mean, they're like, I got to tell you, Richard, your little intro there was it was pretty powerful and moving, almost to the point of tears for me.
Same.
I cried writing it.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I mean, I almost cried listening to it. And it's because it puts me back in that emotional place of questioning my humanity. It puts me back in that emotional place of questioning my worth and whether I'm capable of or worthy of living a life that's of value and adds to other people's lives. And now that I've been doing that for a few years, it's insane to me, but sometimes I forget how that felt. And I mean, so I appreciate that. It is a reality.
So both of you guys, and definitely speaking for myself, and I think probably for Divine and Seth as well, first of all, I admit fully, I was guilty. And I was more guilty than they found me guilty for. And I look back and I am deeply ashamed. I'm ashamed of what I did, but I'm ashamed of who I was and how I treated people and just being a general scumbag who just was totally self-involved. Did going to prison change that for you? Because, there's a day when you're not in prison, your pre-prison day, where you're a scumbag, and then you go into prison and now you're meeting brothers and you're connecting on this human level. That didn't happen overnight when you first got there, did it?
No. For me, my spiral into criminal life, was the result of, an opiate and meth addiction, right? That lasted for a few years. So I was a completely different person than who I thought I was, right? I was still that person. I was that addict, right? So I wholeheartedly, own up to that and admit that. And there was a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, when the fog cleared, because my arrest date was March 28th, 2013. My clean and sober date's March 29th. So from that moment on, I've been clean and sober, and I'll have 8 years of being clean and sober at the end of this year.
That's great, man. Congrats.
Congratulations, bro.
To you,
Thank you,
brother.
Greg. Thank you.
How was that transition? Like when you get in, it's March 28th, right? And you're like, shit, like that detox is.
Oh man. So like, I don't really remember a lot of the first couple weeks there, there was like court day, they were calling me down to video court and, from my cell in jail, like down to the, back up, and it's all a haze. It really took like 2 or 3 months for the fog to clear. Right. And for me to really like grasp the gravity of the situation and like, oh fuck, you know, like,
Right.
no, and I'm looking at time, like, I'm not just like going to do some jail time, like, you know, and these were my first felony charges ever, but like, you know, when I got arrested, my buddy and I, who I got arrested with, like, we were in the back of the cop car, and I go, dude, how long do you think we're going to spend away? And he's like, I don't know, maybe a year. And I was like, oh my God, you know, and then I ended up getting a 7-year prison sentence and had to do 5, you know, but it was like after like 2-3 months where I was, you know, like I said, the fog cleared, and I was like, dude, like, I am not going to let this be the final chapter. Like, I'm not going to let this be a tragedy. You know, I'm a writer at heart, like in many different ways. And I was like, you know, I'm not going to let this define me. I'm not going to let all my friends and family and the people that knew me, for when they talk about Vic, to be like, oh, fuck, did you hear about Vic? Like, that's just, that's a bad situation. I wanted it to be redemption. I wanted it to be a triumph. So, and that's when I made.
You came into, once you're, you know, you cleared your head, you had an intentionality about your time and your days, and you were going to accomplish something at least out of this.
Yeah.
That's true with you, Spencer. How long did it take you to sort of, you know, evolve into who you are today, or return to who you are today?
It was definitely a long process, but it started with that moment of clarity and intention, moment of somewhat clarity in the fog, where I realize that, you know, I've been in just on this one case, right? They've arrested me and I've bailed out, or they've released me like 5 or 6 different times. I've had my door kicked in at 3 o'clock in the morning with tanks on my front lawn. I have the cops, I have the feds who are trying to prosecute me. I've got the detectives who are trying to get me to either turn, or their turn, you know, like they're really gonna stick it to me. At that point, I'd been robbed point blank and shot at point blank. Why am I here? Because I'm meant to do something positive with all of it, but that's really about the only explanation I have. So, you know, all of these things had transpired, and I had a moment of lucidity when I was sitting in a holding cell in King County Jail, and it was the dank, you know, musty concrete, semi-damp walls. I'm shackled, I'm handcuffed, I'm a mess. And I realized that, you know, if I keep going down the road I'm going down, I'm either going to end up dead or in prison for life. Is that what I want?
Was that like some in the middle of the night epiphany that you came to?
I don't even know if I don't even know if in the moment I realized it. Like it wasn't a conscious like light bulb moment. It was a turning point where I just recognized that the path I was going down was death or prison forever. And after that, I got released again, and, you know, on my own recognizance, as they call it in Washington, while they tried to gather more evidence to throw the book at me even harder. And I was out for maybe another few weeks or a month, and to some degree went back to the same old shit, but I wasn't invested in it anymore. Like I wasn't going hard anymore. I was like, you know what, this just, it doesn't feel right. It's not going, you know, I just like most human beings, like I want to live a good life and enjoy the good things that life has to offer me, but I want to be able to empower other people to do that too. I feel good when I give back to other people. And right now I'm taking
but we're going to talk about that later. I'm talking about when you first got there. You weren't thinking about giving back to anybody.
I wasn't, but this is what I can articulate now. But in that moment, something didn't feel right. So when I was arrested the final time, and all of the charges came flowing down, which ended up, I think, for this round to be 18 or something, 18 charges, and looking at federal time and looking at the being charged with the RICO Act, which carries decades. And, you know, sitting in jail that time, it's just like, you know, I don't know what's going to happen now, but I know that whatever happens, I have to do something differently. I have to figure out. how to do something differently. And the only thing that I could actually like solidify in my mind, because of some of my extended family, is that I need to finish my college degree. Like that's what I'm going to do when I'm in prison. I don't care how much time they give me. I'm going to get my bachelor's degree, and that's how I'm going to come out of this a better person. I did.
Congratulations.
Took a hell of a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah. It's all right.
But
college days are fun.
Yeah.
Divine, you've been shaking your head like you relate to a lot of what you've heard from Spencer. You had a long career, you know, in the drug trade, on the streets, slinging. You know, it wasn't like a one-shot deal. I've had enough, right? So when did it click for you?
Last time I was incarcerated about 8 years ago, Spencer, I went through the same exact thing. I had this moment just saying, yo, this, like, I'm better than this, man. I'm greater than this. I know I am. I'm more intelligent than being incarcerated. I'm tired of keep going back in and out of prison. I'm like, yo, fuck this, man. Amen. I got to figure this out, period. So I had to break through that negative psychological cycle of that recidivism and that mindset of I have to sell drugs to live. I have to sell drugs to survive. Been doing this since I was 13. That's really what I was programmed. Yep. I had to break through that, man. And that last time, I just thought about it. I'm like, yo, man, fuck this. Wow. I got to do it. And that's what did it for me.
You 100%. Did it. And now look at you. Vic, somebody asks, James asks, you were talking about, you know, kicking your addiction, I guess, essentially. Mm-hmm. You're asked, did the prison provide you with resources to help you with that?
No, not really. I mean,
yeah, take it away.
I mean, you know, when I did, so my case took a while.
They took it away.
Yeah, it's called cold turkey.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I mean, I wasn't on methadone or anything like that, so no. But I mean, I spent 16 and a half months in county waiting for our charges to get finalized because there was a lot of identity theft. The Secret Service got involved. Like, it was a very complicated case and across multiple counties, did a lot of damage. But you know, there was NAAA meetings in jail that I went to a couple of times, but it just was not, I don't know. I didn't vibe with it really. And I did a couple of meetings when I got to prison as well, but no, they didn't really provide me with anything.
So it was something that
I had to be very cognizant of it and actively pursue my sobriety every day. It was a choice that I had to make because, you know, there wasn't a lack of opportunity to get high.
There's plenty of drugs in prison.
Yeah.
What helped you? Was it spirituality, religion? What was it that you?
It was fitness and it was spirituality, but like the two biggest things for me. So when I was arrested, I was like 115 pounds. I'd always been like a super skinny guy, and I'm like 165 right now. So I started working out in jail and then carried that over to prison, and I never stopped. Like from day one, I actively do CrossFit every day now. Fitness is a huge part of my life, and it keeps me sane and it keeps me sober. And then I've always been a spiritual person, but I really got into meditation and yoga. I meditate every day. I'm actually studying to be a Reiki practitioner as well. So
what I think I went through personally, tell me if this sort of resonates with you. You know, we all led lives prior to our incarceration. You know, there was good times when there was money and there was fun and there was drugs and there's women or there's men or whatever is in your life that matters. And you go to prison and you're scrubbing toilets and you're eating slop and you're being treated poorly and you're sleeping next to and there's this huge dose of humility. And I remember when I was in prison for the first 6 months of just like shaking my head, like wondering, you know, what happened? And is this really me? Like, which is the real me? Who am I?
Yep.
And totally. It was just like, what happened? It was like Dostoevsky that I woke up in prison or something, yeah. you know, and I think it's that cognitive dissonance of saying, this is not why my parents put me on this earth to be here today, you know, and I resolved, I'm just never going to do anything that sort of betrays my destiny. And it sounds like you guys went through that too.
Yeah, that was well said, Richard. I think when we're in prison, I think you have this sense of, especially when you lose everything. Like you came from Wall Street, you had to give all your money when you came home destitute, homeless, everything you went through to build what you built now from 70 million jobs to Commissary Club. I think we have this sense of uncertainty when we lose everything in prison, right? But then we also have this glimmer of hope that maybe this is going to turn out good or this is going to turn out right. And then you have those individuals who consciously move towards that direction and they prepare themselves for their release and they say, okay, I'm going to be this better person. They take the best habits they've created in prison, CrossFitting, working out. I did the same thing. I never worked out before. Prison gave me that routine. Do it to this day, spirituality, other things. And it seems like you guys both pulled. Did you do writing when you were in prison, Vic? Is that what was prison that gave you the writing thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been a writer before. I mean, just on my own, and then I studied screenwriting through UCLA Extension. Took their certificate course because every aspect of filmmaking I wanted, to learn. So yeah, I actually hand wrote 3/4 of a feature length film and hand wrote part of a pilot that I am now working on in final draft to finish both of those as well.
So I was going to say that's on the production schedule.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that later, guys. You guys are relentless, and I give you credit for that.
I take that as a compliment, sir. Thank you.
Take it however you like.
Hey, I'm just answering the writing.
Richard.
Just answering the writing question truthfully.
All right, so I want to change the subject a little bit to more of sort of the practicality of the prison experience. When you got to prison, now you were in county. Now people don't understand. There's a big difference between jail, county jail, and prison.
Oh God.
So
yes,
prison is a relief.
Tell everybody who's not familiar what's the big differences.
Oh man.
Oh my God.
Prison is just a relief. Most people take plea deals just to get out of county jail to go to prison.
So what's so bad about county jail that's better in prison?
I didn't go outside for 16 and a half months.
Literally 16 and a half months?
Literally 16 and a half months. I was kept indoors. I never went outside once.
That's crazy.
Never once in 16 and a half months did they let you outside.
Nope. We had in my unit in jail, we had.
That's fucking amazing.
They had the yard, which was an enclosed space with slats to let fresh air in, and that's it. So I couldn't, and all the windows, this was in Snohomish County Jail. It's just one county above Seattle. Seattle's King County, and then it's Snohomish County. So yeah, I didn't see outside. I didn't go outside for 16 and a half months. So that's just the fucking major thing right there.
Right.
The food
Seth, you were in solitary in county jail for quite a bit, right?
No, I was in solitary in big boy prison.
Oh, in prison, sorry.
Yeah. But the thing I would add to county is that, everybody's wearing the same clothes and they just throw it all in a big washer, and then you get your laundry, and it's like you're wearing somebody else's underwear.
Yeah.
You're wearing somebody else's socks.
That's that bullshit.
You got to fight for something that doesn't have holes and shit stains.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm 7 feet tall, and trust me, they didn't make everybody's not 7 feet tall, so I'm wearing clam diggers the whole time.
Yeah, if I haven't made that clear to everybody, Seth, who played in the NBA, not to make generalizations about basketball players, but Seth is 7'1".
Holy shit.
So I would imagine the whole clothing thing had to be an issue for you there, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, after 2 minutes, you're just like, oh, I don't give a fuck. Who am I trying to impress in here? I got bigger right? So, but you're
right. So when you got to prison, I would like everybody to answer this. This is like the speed round. And I don't mean that drug-wise, Vic. So please, the wrong way. I'm not trying to trigger you here, but quickly, what was the most surprising thing when you showed up in prison that you were completely not ready for or found unexpected? Anybody?
I think the joy that I found there. There were moments that I found joy with my friends that I wasn't expecting, right? I don't want to say prison's a joyful experience because it's, terrible, but the moments of joy that you can find in prison. Do you know what I mean?
That took a while for you to be able to appreciate, did it not?
Yeah. I mean, there were moments in county too, where I was sitting there laughing with some of my friends, and I'm like, wow, why am I laughing this hard? I shouldn't be having, this good of a time.
Happy now.
I shouldn't be happy or having this good of a time, So
shame on me.
Yeah.
All right, but when you first showed up, was there anything that like, whoa, or that you just weren't ready for that surprised you?
The gangs for me, and the
tell us about
racial
what
segregation.
you addressed there. What was that about? What was that about the gangs?
The racial segregation. I've never been someone who really pays attention to color or to racial difference, and I guess I wasn't really exposed to racism. So when I got to even to jail, but especially to prison, and sat down at a table and had like 4 Mexican guys come up and tell me I couldn't sit there, I'm like, what the fuck do you mean I can't sit here? It's an empty table. Like that's
a Mexican table.
Yeah, that was something I was not prepared for. And it took me a while to figure out, like, okay, yep, that one's reserved for the Pisces, that one's for the South Siders, that's the North Siders. And crazy. I mean, it took me a long time, but I enough time of doing me, I was respected and respected all of them, and they respected me. So it wasn't moving around wasn't as big of a deal. But when I first got there, I was a fish out of water and had no idea how to really navigate that racial stuff. So I got to be honest, I sure as shit did not want to be on the wood pile either. Like those knuckleheads did not look like they were a group.
What is the wood pile?
Is one of the white supremacist groups in the Washington State prison system.
Yeah. They call it the wood pile?
They call it the wood pile, yeah. One of them. Yeah, I mean, the swastika is all tattooed everywhere. I'm like, no, I don't want to hang out. You're like, oh, you're a white boy? I'm like, I'm white, but I'm not hanging out with you.
Was that?
I'm not a wood piler.
I'm not a wood piler. Did that put you at risk by making those decisions?
Probably, but I was too naive to realize it. Really, it was. I was just doing me. I wasn't against anybody. I didn't have any problem with anybody. It was just I didn't want to be a part of your clique that had a problem with other people. Right? I'm going to judge people on their individual merits. Like I'm going to hang out with you because I like what you're about and what you're doing, but I'm not going to hang out with your homie who's in the same car, which is a gang in prison, because he's out there, running missions on people and trying to take them off a mainline when they come in because he doesn't like the way that they look, or the car doesn't like the way that they look. And I'm not about that, but I'll be, I'll be respectful and cordial to everybody, and I'll give my deeper. Let me reframe that. I'll be cordial to everybody. I'll show respect and admiration to the people who carry themselves like I imagine everybody who's looking back at me on this screen right now carry themselves. And eventually people, they couldn't help but respect that. But I was too naive about it when I got in there. I wasn't worried about like, well, they're going to take, I didn't even think about it.
Okay. So one common, sort of trope about prison, and certainly the racial issue there is how it's almost, that at any minute something could explode based upon a perceived slight, or you're sitting at the wrong table or whatever. And you're not a tough guy. You don't come across that way at all. You said you respected people, they respected you. Is that all it takes to, is that not all it takes, but will that attitude keep you safe in prison at the places that you've been?
No, I put on more of a front when I was in prison, I think.
As a tough guy?
Yeah. I mean,
well, he was also a beast. Let's be real.
I mean, I was also I was a lot bigger and I lifted a lot of weights, and I could outlift pretty much anybody on the weight pile when I was there.
Wow.
Even though being a short guy, and that's, everybody always joked around like, oh, you have, a shorter distance to lift it. That's why you can lift so much. I'm like, whatever works. I still got you. It doesn't really matter.
It's true though.
if you watch his TEDx talk,
it's a matter of physics.
Yeah,
it is.
His TEDx talk he did from Monroe Prison, like he's freaking just jacked. Like,
all right. Well, that's something we want to make sure people know. If you want to hear Spencer at his TEDx talk, I'm sure it's on YouTube, and
it is.
Check it out. I haven't seen it. Vic, where did you fit in from a racial point of view when you showed up?
So, yeah, I mean, like Spencer, and I'm glad he brought it up, I was super naive. I had no idea like racial politics played any sort of role in jail and prison till I got there. And so, jail wasn't really an issue. And I didn't really deal with it a lot in prison because I went to minimum, and it was like a work camp at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla here. So, but there was still politicking going on. And so I was like, yeah, where do I fit it? I'm Indian, East Indian. So I was like, where the fuck do I fit in? Right. Like what's the Indian gang? Is there one,
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't
biracial.
exist. So, I basically, when I went to the classification prison, which is more like all custodies mixed together, and it was sort of racially divided. I sat with the USAs, which is the API group. So that was sort of
Asian Pacific Islander.
Yeah. Okay. So that was interesting. There's a handshake and everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So that part was interesting. But when I got to camp and when I got to, my home institution, and, I kind of tried to, or the API guys tried to recruit me a little bit. And I was just like, look, I will show you nothing but respect, and I'm here if you need anything, but I'm just going to do me. And nobody fucked with me from that point of view, because, everybody knew that I was just there to like do my time, not fuck around, not get high. I just was really focused on.
Well, that's a big misconception, that doesn't make good movies, but that's the way reality is, right?
Yeah.
So. And I think for me, and just to play off what Vic was saying, when you're focused on doing something positive with your time, you attract those kind of people, and you attract those kind of people from all different races, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
The people that I was going to college with, I mean, Black, Mexican, API, East Indian, didn't matter.
Commonality.
Yeah.
We had that thing. We had that commonality. It's a perfect way to say
That's an interesting point, that you establish yourself as someone not only who just wants to do his time, but you're involved in positive things. You're surrounding yourself with people like that. They're not going to give you a hard time. That becomes your little microcosm within the prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always talk about food when we talk about prison. And when I talk to my old friends from prison, we talk about sort of lovingly, mostly disgustingly, about the things that we used to eat and things that people used to cook.
I got a meat stick to throw in on a spread.
Yeah.
I got a meat stick to throw in on a spread. Anyone got some rice?
I got squeezed cheese to throw in on it too.
We gotta get an onion out of the kitchen.
We got to hook up in the garden, the fresh veggies from the garden.
Yeah.
Right?
Seth tells a good story. I think you worked in the kitchen, and you went into one of the refrigerators or the freezers to pull out like a big box of chicken parts. And you read, what did you read on the box?
Not for human consumption.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Who read that?
that's not for human consumption. Not like that the pull date, used before a certain date.
No.
Not even for human
They always give
consumption.
the grade Z.
Thank you. I was just gonna say grade. It's like grade F
Grade
meat,
Z.
like mostly circus animals, some filler. Like,
and that was the shit we looked forward to.
Yeah, and that was chicken.
Yeah,
That was
That was
syllable
chicken,
on the
man. That's like
yard,
the
too.
best thing on the menu.
Chicken day was a big day.
Oh,
He's like,
I'm so
fried
happy.
fish,
I'm
even
so
fish, they
happy.
did the
I
fried fish.
never have to eat a brake pad again. Like, did y'all have the brake pads?
No.
Just like
Oh, the chicken pads?
it wasn't real chicken though. It was like
Of
it's
course
like
not.
Parts is parts.
Yeah, just congealed into like a that patty that they would
thick
serve on
patty.
mashed potatoes.
Yeah, man.
It
Yeah, those were
identified as
delish.
like meatloaf or like something else or something else.
that shit ruined meatloaf for me, man. I wouldn't try meatloaf for the first like 3 or 4 times it was offered to me when I got out.
I only will eat meatloaf if I made it myself.
I still can't eat ramen. I cannot eat.
I won't eat
cannot
ramen anymore either.
Ever.
Fuck
ever.
no. Fuck ramen.
But yeah, you eat
No.
plenty of it inside though, huh?
Got to.
Oh yeah.
And how'd you make it? Tell me how you made it. What's your favorite recipe?
Well, ramen is sort of like you use it for filler for different things like burritos or nachos or whatever. But my super bomb recipe was freaking chicken pad thai noodles, right? So you get the Thai rice noodles on store, right?
Yes.
So you cook those. So I would cook those up and I would make a peanut. So I'd cook them in the microwave, and then I'd make a peanut sauce with peanut butter.
Peanut sauce.
So peanut butter, soy sauce, a little bit of
Yes.
I mean, come on.
I'm familiar.
sriracha. So you'd mix that up, and then you'd get the chicken off package or store, right? The I don't even know what
The
parts
bagged chicken.
but you know, yeah, like the chicken that comes in like the tuna package, but it's chicken.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you mix that up in there, microwave
Bag
it.
chicken.
Yeah, dude, straight up chicken, pad thai noodles in peanut sauce, bro.
Yeah. That's probably the best thing
delicious.
going. Definitely better than most of the stuff on mainline.
Peanut
I would
sauce is the kill me.
dude, people would come to me to make it on the tier. They'd be like, Vic, dude, can you make the pad thai noodles tonight? I'd be like, all right.
Yeah, he was known for that, huh?
Yeah.
In my prison, there were people I would see all day in the camp, work, whatever they were doing. And then I would never, ever, ever see them in the cafeteria, in the mess hall. And they would not be there ever. And I'm going like, what are they doing? And where are they? And then one night, the food was so disgusting. I said, I can't deal with this. And I go out in the back where they have all these microwaves. And they have a wall of microwaves. It's got like, I don't know, it seems like there was 100 microwaves, each one more disgusting than the next, with dripping, caked on, disgusting enameled sauce and all kinds of disgusting, unnatural things that have melted through thousands of microwaving, you know, and these guys are cooking up feasts of all, and they're all the Latin guys.
Yeah,
They would get the rice from the commissary, and they would get the wraps and bean, and they used to cook up a storm.
Yeah.
I was down with George Jung, and who's the character that Johnny Depp played in Blow.
Yeah, Boston George.
Whoa.
At Latuna, and I never saw him in the chow hall. Not a single second, and all that.
No,
it's like I don't eat that shit.
If you got money and if you're prison rich, which you don't got to have a lot of money to be prison rich, and you've been there long enough and you've realized everything on this menu is never going to change. It's all dog food. Actually, I wouldn't even feed it to my dog. And at some point you're just like, you know what? I can do way better with the stuff off of the store.
But the commissary not that much better either. It's not
no, it's really not. But
you gotta have
better.
You gotta have a friend in the kitchen. If you have a friend in the kitchen who can bring you those fresh vegetables,
I was in the kitchen.
You're on.
I used to give my friends all the "do not eat this chicken. It's not for humans," and they used to like love me for it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or the guys working out heavy.
The chicken day was huge.
The protein, they would like get 100 hard-boiled eggs.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
That was a big business.
Dude.
That's a big business.
Slabs of eggs.
I give my chicken away for a book of stamps every Tuesday and Thursday.
The onion, the pepper, and the tomato.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah. Any kind of real protein you can get your hands on. That shit is like gold.
Yeah.
And cans of mackerel, were big with us.
Oh, the mac was, come on, the mac was.
You guys had cans. They took that away in the Washington prison.
Yeah, we had cans. So it's better to throw it in a sock and hit someone over the head with it.
Exactly.
That's why we had it.
Yeah.
It was really good for that. So let me ask you, I think, Vic, you said before we were talking, and I'm going to paraphrase here because I'm going to get it. I don't remember exactly what you said, but you said words to the effect that going to prison was the best thing that could happen to you, or something like that. Do I have that right?
Yeah, essentially it was, because you have this situation that most people think is probably the worst thing that could happen to you. And Spencer and I always say it was the best thing that could have happened to us, because like for me, it saved my life.
We made it that way.
And then we made it the best thing because we used the time to work on ourselves, to, fully rebuild ourselves, mind, body, and soul, and to hit the ground running when we got out. I don't think I'm the strongest I've ever been because of the time that I did. And I'm grateful for it. I tell all my friends and family that I'm grateful that it happened to me.
Likewise.
Yeah. So does that not make it hard? Because I feel the same way. And we were talking earlier, I'm proud of what I went through. Yeah, and it helped. It made me stronger. It made me a better man. It made me wiser. Yep. And those are great things to learn, certainly. And yet I work every day, as I think we all do, trying to not just change, but dramatically change the whole criminal justice system, particularly the unfairness and unfair circumstances in prison. So how can a place be the best place that we could have found and also be the worst place simultaneously?
I don't know what your experience was per se, but for me, all of the things that helped to help give me the resources and the opportunities to build myself into who I am now. And that gives me the ability to say, I would not change anything. All of those things, or at least the vast majority of those things, were not state provided. They weren't provided by they weren't provided by DOC. They were provided by nonprofit organizations who were coming in and trying to help people. They were provided by people like, I saw somebody on here saying Pinky wrote somebody in prison while they were doing 19 years, right? It took
Pinky.
I don't know, man. I'm just reading it in the chat. Somebody in the chat said Pinky was writing him for 19 years. David, my partner in Good Planet, he came in as a guest to speak and share his story in one of the classes that I was running and that I was a part of. And people like him and people like Jim Donald, he's been the CEO of so many damn retail food companies and other companies. I can't even list them all. But people like that who I looked up to and I respected, who came in, volunteered their time and cared enough to say, I believe in you and you are worth it and you do have a lot to offer. Like that, those are the things that helped me to get to the point of being able to say prison is the best thing that ever happened to me. It's not prison as it is. And so
but if you weren't forced into incarceration, right? Which you were, they put you in handcuffs. And
absolutely. I'm not saying we need to abolish prison.
It was not a choice. So while the accommodations may not have been great and the food may have been awful and the guards may have been terrible and the medical care can be terrible and there's no air and you can't look at the sun and all the other miserable things that you've described, let's identify what does seem to work, or at least it worked for me, and I think for all of you guys, is that sort of extended time out, that if you are willing to put in the work, that you can really turn around a life.
Yeah.
And I hate hearing myself even saying these things, it's sort of embarrassing to me, but I got I know Seth has talked about it and he said, that's exactly what I needed. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, it is tough to say it. And I struggle with it a little bit because I don't consider myself a prison abolitionist. I consider myself a prison reformist and really somebody who wants to empower change and influence change in our wider society. Because I don't think that, like, somebody like me, I needed the time out. I needed life to slap me in the face, and it did through prison. But I believe that there are a lot of positive changes that can and need to be made in the system so that vastly more people can have the kind of outcome that I had.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because Spencer and I always talk about the spark of transformation, right? We each had this spark of transformation while we were inside, and it's providing the opportunity to have that spark for more of the prison population.
What does it take to have that spark? What needs to be in place?
People need to believe in you, first of all, until you can believe in yourself. It took those other people that I just said, saying that they believed in me in order for me to be able to believe in me.
So taking a more humanistic approach, making people feel like, like they're a human being rather than just a.
How would a prison do that?
I think number one of the things that always really pissed me off about the prison and the correctional officers, most of them, and maybe not even most of them, right? I mean, there were actually a few who were really good people and who I think actually do positive things for people's emotional and mental states. But by and large, the prison system beats you down and makes you believe that you are less than human, that you don't deserve this. You don't say what?
You're just a number.
Yeah. You're just a number. You're just a number.
But who is doing that? Is it the guard? Is it the warden? Is it the physical nature of the facility?
I think it's at every level.
It's systemic.
It's every single level. Yeah. So
it's the guard. It's the guard laughing at me when I say I'm going to get my college degree and saying good fucking luck. It's the guard saying that when he overhears me talking with one of my friends about starting a business, saying like, fuck, you can't do that, you're a felon. It's being told that, what do you mean? You're a felon now, you can't travel internationally. Well, that's funny. I've been to a bunch of different countries since I've been out, right? Like there's
ignorance.
Yeah.
It's
greater access to education while inside. You know, I mean, there's some facilities that have it and that are doing a decent job, but we can always do better. You know, greater access to medical care. I mean, medical care was a joke at the facility that I was at. I mean,
care. We're going to be bringing on a doctor, a prison doctor, in an upcoming episode, and I'm very, and as well as correctional officers. And to a certain extent, I always thought that these people were they were prisoners more than I was, because this was essentially their life forever, whereas I was going to get out, you know, and it's not like they're making a lot of money or leading these glamorous lives in prison, that's for sure.
I can't tell you how many guards that was one of our, you know, some of the cooler ones, that was a joke. And it was really morbid, frankly, because, you know, they're talking about, hey, your release date's coming up, man, you're going to do good. And I still have another 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, I'm sorry. You might want to think about a career change, man, because that's,
well, it's these prisons are typically in these little towns in the middle of nowhere where prison can buy a huge amount of land, and these people make minimum wage, you know, and, you know, they're not liked by the prisoners, you know, it doesn't seem to be a great career path.
No, but some of them, I mean, I credit a few of them with really helping to provide me opportunity to thrive in there, right? And I mean, there's something as simple as being able to use a copy machine to make copies of educational material to run a class, right?
Right.
That's against the fucking rules. You can't do that. You can go to the hole for that shit. But there are officers who are like, of course, man. I mean, you're doing good things. I want to help you be better, and who break the rules because, I mean, really, who's gonna, as far as it on the prison staff, who's gonna fire them for that? To help. And you know, there are a few prison guards that I can remember that I respect very much, and you would gladly shake their hand or you know, go have coffee or a beer with them.
Someone asked if just serving decent food would make a big difference.
Yeah, I saw that.
Amen.
I mean, there was a lawsuit going on against correctional industries when I was
What is correctional industries?
So correctional industries is, I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. So it isn't a for-profit entity that I mean, that the prison basically contracts all this stuff out with, whether it's like making license plates and then they pay, you know, the prisoners freaking pennies you know, to do these tasks. So, but anyway,
the private sector.
Yeah. So correctional
Basically
industries made all of the food for the prisons. And I mean, it was a joke, the nutritional value of this food, right? And I mean, people were getting sick. I mean, you had certain inmates were getting diabetes from just the amount of like sugar and just it's
sodium.
It's crazy. And so just providing nutritional food, you know, just a basic human necessity would be a great start, you know. And I think it would help in so many different ways, but yet they can't seem to get that right.
They're looking at it from a bottom line standpoint, right? So it's going, hey, you know, like they're running a business and they got shareholders to you know, account to. And it's like the whatever minimum they can get away with.
We're just product on the shelf.
To keep
you know, I let me just throw this like sort of last question out here. You know, here we are. You know, I think we're being very honest here, and we're not universally condemning everybody associated with the prison system. And there are good people there, and we're not suggesting that the entire experience is awful and there was good that came out of it and it helped us in certain respects. You know, what would you say to somebody, you know, who's about to go to prison? What advice would you give them? You know, what would you share based upon your experience?
Costa Rica.
Venezuela.
I don't know. Do they have an extradition treaty?
Yeah.
I think that was the point.
Yeah. Man, that.
What would you tell them, Vic? What would be your best advice?
I would tell them that you're stronger than you think and you can get through this, right? Because all of these mental constructs you have in your mind about what prison is and what you're going to go through. I mean, maybe some of them are true, but a lot of them are bullshit. And I think that I would just tell them, like, use the time to better yourself, like, and just breathe and just take it one day at a time. And
Okay.
you'll learn that you're stronger than you think. You can get through this. When I was faced with the fact of going to prison, I was just like, I don't think I'm going to survive. How would I possibly get through years and years in prison? And
you did.
And I did.
What practical piece of advice? That's an attitudinal, broad thing. What small thing to keep you out of trouble? You should know this. For me, it was don't get undressed to go to the shower until you get to the shower stall.
Courtesy.
In other words, at any gym in the world, you can sit on the bench, put a towel around yourself, walk to the shower. The first time I did that in prison, the whole place went nuts. You don't do that. You go dressed and then you get undressed actually in the shower. So I would tell people that. What would you tell people?
Man.
Oh, wow.
Or did I steal your idea?
Don't go to the showers after midnight.
Don't go to the shower at all.
10
was
to
that?
2.
Were you allowed at the showers after midnight? I was locked down.
Another cliche, don't drop the soap.
Yeah.
That's cliche, but totally true.
All right. The minute this is over, you're gonna have like 11 ideas.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. You
I'm
put me on the spot. Now
you.
I'm just like,
Yeah,
How about this one? I learned early that you don't reach across someone's plate like to grab salt.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Never.
I got a
That's
good one.
considered a major sign of disrespect.
Yeah, and always don't come up on somebody in line when you're on main line. Like, always leave space.
Give
ahead
people
of you,
space.
behind you. Yeah.
Respect.
Or the coronavirus.
Respect.
Respect. It's that's it. It's respect. It's respect people's space. Respect their, as much as you can, respect their humanity. Right? I learned really early. I didn't go directly to a minimum. I went to a medium, which was also, it was in one of the older facilities in Washington called the Washington State Reformatory. And they had the old school, barred cell fronts and sliding bar doors and everything. And I'm totally new. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out like how I'm supposed to set up my cell in order to be comfortable and move in. So I'm looking in other people's cells, trying to get an idea of how to interior decorate. And that was the stupidest damn thing I ever could have done. Don't ever, and after I was there for a little while, I figured out why, because I fucking hated it too.
Stay out my house, punk.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You see something in here that you like, man? What's up? Like, that's a very fast way to start a fight.
Yeah, that's a mistake. I also discovered don't be sarcastic. That may be, don't be ironic. Laughing in general with people you don't know can get you into big trouble.
How many times you break that rule, Richard?
Do it now.
How long did it take to learn that
I've
rule?
done it once since I've been out.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you guys too. So you mentioned the spark of transformation, right? Like, and that's a conversation you guys talk about a lot. So is that something that that you think everybody gets? So 2 questions. Do you think everybody gets that? And can you Spencer, you were saying when David Israel said you're more than this, you're better than this, you can do this, like that may have been it for you. And was it clearly identifiable for you both?
Look, so for me, number one, I think anybody who is in the position that all of us are now, I think they have, at least in my experience, everyone that I've come into contact with, all my friends, my business partners, they had, whether it was most of the time, it's not an immediate light bulb moment and everything is crystal clear. It's a spark, like Vic describes it, that then starts to ignite a fire that you slowly build over time. And for me, it was the spark was that recognition that I want more than this. I want to be more than this. And then trying to figure out how to do it. And what helped to fuel that fire were people like David, and he never actually outright said that I can remember, like, you can do this. You're more than this. It wasn't the words, it was his actions. It was his going out of his way to come in and share his story. It was his, when he was on the way out, I asked him, hey man, like, I really identify with your story. Can I keep in touch? And him saying, yeah, of course, hit me up. And it was him responding to my letter. It was him picking up my phone calls.
Wow.
It was and the same thing with the other people like him. It was their actions that showed me that they believed in me, that really helped to fuel the fire. And I mean, I could go on ad nauseum about the experiences like that, but almost bar none, there was some sort of a spark and then a transformation. One of my close friends shares a story about being in solitary, being in the hole. I mean, he did quite a few years, 20 years or so, and I can't remember how many years he did in solitary. But at some point he said, I had to be okay with me. That's all I had in there, and I had to be okay with me. And that's when the transformation started to happen for him. And I've heard that a couple of times. So I believe nobody comes out of it, not planning a better robbery and doing better things without having some sort of spark.
Yeah. I think it's available for anyone. For me, it was that moment of the fog clearing in county and finally, being sober for 3 months and taking a look around and realizing that this was not what I wanted for my life. And it sort of started there, and then it was a gradual progression, but that was it, is like, I realized how far I had fallen. And I just think there's opportunities to provide that for the men and women, that are doing time in different ways, whether it's through programming, whether it's through mentorship or through storytelling, like we're trying to do, but just at least showing them that there is another way and that you can do this, right? That it is possible, that what we're doing here today, this can provide a spark for somebody else, having that conversation, showing that to them.
Yeah. So,
you mentioned mentorship. Our good friend Craig is in the crowd here. Craig was serving a lifetime sentence for some bullshit drug charge, and marijuana. He got out.
Wow.
Thank God. And he said that a good mentor is the best asset for someone coming out of prison.
Yep.
When we're always sort of polling the formerly incarcerated, because that's who we work with, to find out, what their needs are and where they might find value. And the two things they say time after time is, I need a job and I need community.
Yep.
And community sometimes comes in the form of a nonprofit they're involved with, but those nonprofits are only really available for the first year or two. The need just continues on forever. And having someone in your life who you can rely on, who's been through it, is really important. Listen, what we do at this point, or what I do, because I need to do it, I am someone who is annoyed endlessly by all kinds of things. And I use this as an opportunity to sort of deliver my rant of the week of what's really pissing me off. And there's something that's really been pissing me off this week. If you've been following the news, Divine is laughing because he knows how I'm always pissed off. If you've been following the news over the last week, you've heard about efforts within the Republican Party that they are, in many states, they're trying to make it not easier for people to vote, but just the opposite, to make it much harder. They're doing things by enacting laws that would shorten the hours available to vote. They're limiting write-in votes, like were so influential in Biden's election. They're requiring greater documentation for people in order to vote. They're even limiting the number of voting places. Rather than increasing them, they're limiting them. And you know where it's coming from, obviously. In this past election cycle, Democrats went through great lengths to reach out to disenfranchised people who couldn't leave a job in the middle of the day to vote, people who didn't have a passport, maybe, people who didn't have a car to drive 30 miles to go vote, which are in fact, generally economically disadvantaged people who are generally people of color. And they reached out to them to get them into the process so that they could exercise perhaps their most important constitutional obligation and most cherished, most valuable thing of being an American, and that is the right to choose who's going to represent you. That population, historically, as we know, has been overwhelmingly Democrat. And for Republicans, apparently, if you can't win at the polls, if you can't do good work, if you can't gain the trust of your electorate, if you can't win at the polls, then shut down the polls. And that's exactly what they've been doing. I have said many, many times, we're 70 million of us who have records. That's 1 in 3 adults. 1 in 3 adults have a record. And we could, if we were galvanized and brought together, we could elect any president we want. Now, not all 70 million have the right to vote, but many do. We could elect anybody that we want. But that would screw over a lot of people, like the Republicans. Will never, ever, ever have the power to do what's right for us unless we're able to vote, unless we're coming together to help each other vote and recognize the importance of doing it. And there are powers that be stand ready to try to deny it, that right to us and that opportunity to us. And I don't believe there's anything about that's fair. So you tell me I'm wrong. I dare you. All right, that about does it for the yard tonight. As usual, we've had amazing guests. Vic, you've been wonderful. Spencer, you guys are smart and passionate and caring and wonderful. You're doing great things. Before we go, Vic, tell me what you're working on. Tell me what's important to you now.
So we just released the very first season of our own podcast, Unincarcerated, the podcast, a couple months ago. All 7 episodes are up now. And then we're working on several film projects. We're shooting a feature-length documentary film based on a crime that happened here in Seattle in 1995. We're doing a docuseries chronicling the post-incarceration experience, and that's something we've been in production on for a couple of years. And then I'll have Spencer tell you about this other project we're working on that we're really excited about.
Yeah, so we've been blessed to partner up and get the life rights for a couple of really amazing people, Jody and Billy Sinclair. We're going to be producing their podcast, the Unincarcerated Sinclairs. That'll be launching soon. Then we're also working on a long form series based on their life story. And I mean, it's just incredible. Billy was sentenced to death for basically an accidental murder that, of course, they framed up and positioned as premeditated. He was able to get that turned into a life sentence and managed to find an amazing path for himself as an award-winning journalist. I mean, some of the most prestigious awards that you get in free society, he managed to get while he was writing for a paper in Angola, in the prison Angola. And he met his now wife as she was a reporter coming in to cover, I believe, death penalty stuff right alongside him. And their story is just amazing. They fought for 20 years to get him out. They're now out and in their 70s, 80s together. They're kind of like surrogate grandparents. I think they've adopted us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And we're really excited to tell their story because I can't do it justice in just a few minutes, but it's going to be an amazing production that you'll see on Netflix, I'm sure.
Please make sure we know about it. And please, everybody, check out your TED Talk. Please, everybody, check out the Unincarcerated podcast. And we look forward to the release of these film projects of yours very, very much. A couple of things before we go. Number one, if you'd like to stick around after we formally end, we invite you to stick around. The Zoom room will stay open as long as people want it to. People have stayed here till 2 a.m. in the past. If you want to connect, and if you want to share what you're involved with, please do. We encourage that. If you'd like to be a guest on an upcoming episode, please get in touch with Adrian. Her contact info, if you already don't have it, along with mine and Seth's and Divine's and Vic's and Spencer's, will be available. You'll see that shortly. Please follow us on social media. That would be great. Another thing, our parent company, which is called 70 Million Resources, tomorrow is kicking off a crowdfunding campaign on Republic, and we would love you to participate. If you believe in the work we're doing, we're a for-profit company, which is to say we want to make money, and we want to make our investors a lot of money. We have some of the most marquee venture capital firms and other investors who are involved with us who have been supporting us. So, you know, my feeling is if you invest, you're going to make a lot of money, and for sure you'll be part of the social good that comes through getting people employed and sharing stories and the work that we do. We have people who have invested $100, $500, that doesn't really matter, but we really would appreciate checking it out. It's Republic, and look for, in this case, it'll be under Commissary Club. So please check that out. We have some amazing guests that'll be coming to the yard over the next month or so. We have our friend Shaka Senghor, who many of you know in the criminal justice space. He's an amazing, amazing man. Alice Johnson, a woman, I think she was called the drug dealing grandmother. She had this huge sentence. She was pardoned by President Trump. We have Ear Hustle, Erlon Woods, who is a major, talk about awards. The guy won a Pulitzer Prize when he was in prison with his podcast. He's going to be coming on. We just found out that Freeway Rick Ross is going to be joining us also. He is OG if there ever was one. So we look forward to having him here. And, you know, needless to say, we get some amazing people, including tonight. Please tell your friends about us. Please, please do that. We really feel, I think I can speak for the six of us, we feel humbled to have a chance to work with the people that we do work with, folks with records. Some of them really are heroic when you consider what they've been through and what they're doing with their lives. I mean, yeah, they made a mistake. Who among us hasn't made a mistake? Who among us hasn't asked at least one time in their life, give me a second chance, please? People make mistakes when they're young. Should they have a life sentence afterwards? Should they live with this stigma, deprived of opportunity and jobs and homes and relationships? I don't think anybody thinks that's fair. Let's help each other. That's the way it's going to happen. No one's going to help us. We've got to do it ourselves. Just deal with it. There's enough of us, we can do it. So Amen. Connect, stick around, talk to each other, find out how you can help, bring value to this community. And I'm telling you, things are getting better. So Amen. Thank you all for joining us. Come back next week, Thursday, same time. Peace, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Well said, Richard. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Vic.
Good meeting all of you.
Thank you.
Catch his move. I'm going to see you guys later.